Welcome back to the Cannes 2023 Parallel Challenge here on Fantasy Film Ball. We are your hosts, Matt and Arnaud.
Every year, some of our favorite films premiere in competition at Cannes and introduce us to some of the most exciting new voices in world cinema. So we've started doing a challenge where every May we watch one film by every director in competition this year, substituting their new films for one of their older films. And normally, this challenge is composed of films neither of us have seen, but of course Matt has seen every single Wes Anderson film. Matt, what the hell? You're supposed to, I'm supposed to participate in this challenge too. What is that?
I know, our criteria for our Cannes Parallel Challenge is that we try to find a film that neither of us have seen from a director in Cannes competition, but I've seen every Wes Anderson movie. So what are we gonna do? Well, we're gonna watch one that I've seen already that you haven't. So that's what we're doing here. But let's talk Wes Anderson. Right? Should we talk Wes Anderson? Let's talk Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson needs no introduction. I would say he is, alongside Steven Spielberg and Quentin Tarantino, one of the few American filmmakers that I would say is a household name. He's currently a TikTok trend. Promise me you're not gonna make a Wes Anderson movie when you visit blank space. How many filmmakers can you say are a TikTok trend? This guy is a household name. Who cares about a Palme d'Or? TikTok trend. That's how you know you've made it. And his films have a very distinct visual style to them, often utilizing symmetry, pastel colors, and one-point perspective to create a dollhouse picture book-like effect, as though every element of his films, including the actors, is a perfectly placed model, like his live-action movies are his stop-motion movies. It's all kind of feels the same. His films include The Royal Tenenbaums, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, The Grand Budapest Hotel, and yes, I have seen all of them, so unfortunately we are rewatching one of these movies. Wes Anderson is one of my personal favorite directors. I really love his aesthetic, but also I just love the melancholic tone of his screenplays. His movies, even though I wouldn't call them very emotional, I find that they move me really deeply. He is screened in competition at Cannes twice with Moonrise Kingdom and The French Dispatch, and today we are going to be talking about The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which is a film that I was due for a rewatch on because I didn't really like it the first time I watched it, and Arnaud, you had not seen it. So let's jump into The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou.
So The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou follows Steve Zissou, who is clearly based on Jacques Cousteau from the moment you first see him with the red hats. That's actually kind of where the Cousteau parallels end. It's more on an aesthetic and kind of surface level, and then Wes Anderson kind of takes that world and rolls with it. Because here, the character played by Bill Murray is an oceanographer at a point in his career where interest is kind of waning in his films, even though he believes to be on the edge of a major discovery. But just as he gets ready to jump on another expedition, Owen Wilson pops up and tells him he's a car. He's his son. So Steve Zissou will have to learn how to be a good father and a good human being in the quest to discover the ocean's secrets. I don't have as high of an opinion on Wes Anderson, although I have a lot of respect for him. This film, to me, and I think you would agree, this feels like a turning point in Wes's career. In that it seems like from this film on, he really embraced fantastical kind of storybook worlds that he tries to craft at every new film. And it's interesting to see him go full steam forward in this direction, despite Zissou being an enormous flop, as I understand it. Good for him if he knew that was the style he wanted to keep pursuing. Like I said, I've never been a huge fan of Wes Anderson. He's got incredible art direction, and you can always respect him for that. But to me, his storytelling is never as strong, and I always feel like I'm missing something. There's something human missing from the film. And I know that's kind of the point. Counterpoint to that would be why do I like Yorgos Lanthimos, for example, and not Wes Anderson as much? And I can't explain that exactly. I guess I'll have to search into myself a little bit more. But for some reason, this particular film had me so much more bored than the other films. I can't explain why, but there's a good chunk in the middle of this film that I just did not care, which is too bad because there's so much on screen, and there's clearly so much money poured on screen too.
This is how I felt before rewatching it. So this is the only film in our lineup that I've seen before, and when I first watched it, I felt exactly how you felt. I've loved all of Wes Anderson's movies, and while everything else he's done for me has been between an 8 and a 10 out of 10, this one was sitting at a 5. And so rewatching it, I was really glad that I ended up liking it just as much. as his other films, like you said, I see this as a turning point. It's a really revolutionary moment. It is the clear moment where he turns from relative realism to complete, like, stop motion filmmaking, but using live action actors. Like, it feels like everything's just crafted. The interesting thing with The Life Aquatic, though, is that you still see that real world at the same time as you're seeing this more manufactured dollhouse world of Wes Anderson. I think it's aesthetically magnificent. I laughed the entire time. And you mentioned that there's no emotional buy-in for you, that these people don't feel human. I would agree, but I still buy into it. I still feel emotionally, and I think Bill Murray really does a great job with making me emotionally buy into the piece and feel for him as someone who has lived his entire life living just for himself and realizing that he's kind of created a net negative effect on the world around him, realizing that people aren't going to just remember him for his films. They're going to remember him for the type of person he was. What type of person does he want to be? And I really like the way that the film follows him on that crisis. I think it's beautiful. And I gotta say, I appreciate how much the screenplay just goes for it. You set up the idea that this is an oceanographer trying to track down a shark that ate his friend. And from there, this movie does everything you could possibly imagine a movie like this would do. And that's always inspiring to me as a writer, to just see a screenplay that just goes for it. But I'll admit, I can be a bit of a style over substance guy. And I really loved this. So, but I totally understand where you're coming from, because it's how I felt about this movie before going into it. I felt that it was flat and emotionless, and I don't feel that way now.
I mean, that's a great point, what you're saying about the screenplay. Like, on paper, it does deliver on everything that you would expect it to. It does supposedly give you bang for your buck if you're buying a ticket for this film. It's hard for me to explain why I was so like uninvested in this film. There's something about his style that doesn't quite work for me on an emotional level. I wish he would just, I don't know, find a way to tell his stories in a way that like engaged me emotionally a little bit more, and not just like a director's showcase. Asteroid City seems to be heading in this exact same direction, continues his style. This time he's going in the kind of UFO Area 51 Americana culture of like the 60s. I love the look of the trailer. It looks, again, it's the pastel style, but it's somehow like new. There's a huge star-studded cast, as we've come to expect from Wes Anderson. He doesn't seem to be reinventing the wheel with this one. He sticks to his formula. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess.
Personally, I'm always so excited for a new Wes Anderson movie, because most of the time seeing a new Wes movie means an instant 5-star for me on Letterboxd. And I agree, it looks like more of the same. But the way I see it, if we're talking Cannes and talking Cannes awards, I don't think Cannes will ever award Wes Anderson. He's been there twice now, for Moonrise Kingdom and for the French Dispatch. No matter how good, I don't think that they would award him, just because, like we've said, he's not reinventing the wheel. He's just giving us what we expect from him. He's a filmmaker that is expertly delivering on expectations from his audience. He knows what people want out of him, and he knows how to deliver that. But that is also why I don't think he will win a prize at the Cannes Film Festival, at least. Maybe he'll end up in Oscar conversation again at some point, but at Cannes, you kind of have to come in with something fresh, as something new, something that excites people. And Wes Anderson, I don't think, will excite people in that way. But Arnaud, what do you think about this film's Oscar prospects? Because, of course, he's been there in a big way in the past with Grand Budapest Hotel, and then missed in a big way with The French Dispatch.
Well, I actually think The French Dispatch got screwed just on the basis of it being an anthology film. Those are just hard to sell for awards consideration, period. Here, as far as I know, Asteroid City is much closer to a Moonrise Kingdom or Grand Budapest. That being said, I don't expect this to be as successful Oscar-wise as Grand Budapest. I would argue, given that I don't believe this will be goose-egged, for it to get 3 craft nominations, something like costume, production design, maybe score, although Desplat has been missing, so maybe not score anymore, I don't know. If this film is really, really good, maybe a screenplay nomination the way Moonrise Kingdom did. But yeah, like you said, don't expect this to get a prize at Cannes. If Moonrise Kingdom couldn't get a prize, it just won't work.
There's a tendency that people have when predicting the Cannes Film Festival and the awards, especially us Anglophones looking at the festival. We're just going to pick whatever recognizable name from a English language filmmaker that we recognize, that's usually what people end up pushing. So in 2021, I remember seeing people say, oh, The French Dispatch has to win the Palm. Wes Anderson doesn't have to. The same way I saw people say that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood had to win in 2019. And it just doesn't really work like that. Expect this to have good reception. Probably it's going to have warmer reception with the American critics in Cannes than it will with the European critics at Cannes. But overall, in terms of Oscars, I do kind of think Wes Anderson's a Jordan Peele type. I think more often than not, his films will just not connect with the Academy, and I think he needs to make something really special to make it through, like he did with the Grand Budapest Hotel, and he almost got in with Moonrise Kingdom, and those I think are both really special films. Unless he makes something as special as those two, if not more special, I would see him getting left out just because he's had such success in the past. It's hard to replicate. Currently, I don't have it in any categories, though I could be convinced to put it into screenplay. Score, I'd like to, but like you said, Desplat has been getting snubbed. I guess that's just where I land. I'm excited for this, but I am not having high prospects for awards at this point. But thank you so much for joining us on our Cannes Parallel Challenge. Make sure you subscribe so you can keep up to date and follow along with us on our journey to discover who our Palme d'Or is going to be.